London, 1942. The city lived in a state of constant terror as German air raids turned a night into a landscape of fire and rubble. While the population retreated to underground shelters, a different kind of predators stalked the darkened streets. Between February 9th and February 16th, four women lost their lives in a series of brutal, ritualistic murders that baffled Scotland Yard. The killer targeted victims with surgical precision, leaving behind a signature that earned him a terrifying moniker in the press. The authorities struggled to investigate while the city burned, creating the perfect environment for a serial predator to operate undetected. Tonight, we dissect the clinical facts of the wartime killings that brought a new level of fear to the London Blitz. Subscribe to Mind 74. If this dossier keeps you hooked, subscribe, leave a like, and hit the notification bell. Comment below your thoughts on this mystery and share this video. February 9th, 1942. The police discovered the body of Evelyn Hamilton in an air raid shelter located in the Marylebone area. She died from strangulation. The crime scene showed no immediate signs of robbery, and her handbag remained at the scene. 2 days later, on February 11th, the police found the body of Evelyn Oatley in a hotel room in Soho. She also died from strangulation. The perpetrator had mutilated the body and left a lipstick mark on her skin. This gruesome detail prompted the press to name the assailant the lipstick killer. On February 13th, the body of Margaret Lowe appeared in a separate apartment in Soho. The killer had murdered her in the same manner as the previous victims. The pattern of the attacks involved strangulation, followed by post-mortem mutilation. The killer left a lipstick signature at each crime scene. The London Metropolitan Police Service mobilized a specialized task force to investigate the string of murders. They faced an immense challenge as the wartime conditions hampered their efforts. The blackout regulations restricted movement at night, making it difficult for the police to maintain effective patrols. They analyzed the witness reports from each location. Several individuals reported seeing a man in a Royal Air Force uniform near the crime scenes. This lead became the primary focus for the investigators. They collaborated with the military police to cross-reference the sightings with the service records of airmen in London. The authorities established a series of checkpoints around the Soho district. They requested that all personnel on leave identify their location during the night of the attacks. The forensic team processed the evidence from the 3 initial crime scenes. They documented the method of strangulation and the specific nature of the mutilations. The lack of forced entry in the hotel room suggested that the victims knew their attacker or that the killer used deception to gain access. The police examined the hotel registers and contacted the proprietors for any descriptions of guests. They gathered detailed profiles of everyone who stayed at the hotels during the week of February 9th. The investigation team spent hours analyzing the similarities in the killings. They concluded that the perpetrator possessed significant knowledge of human anatomy. This indicated the killer was a disciplined and highly controlled individual. The press coverage began to influence the public perception of the case. The police issued statements warning women to avoid walking alone during the blackout hours. The investigators tracked the movements of known criminals with a record of violent offenses, but they found no match to the specific methodology of the lipstick killer. The situation remained critical as the police prepared for further attacks in the city. On February 16, 1942, the killer struck for the 4th time. The police discovered the body of Doris Joannet in a room in Paddington. She suffered the same fate as the other victims, strangulation and mutilation. During the investigation of this final scene, the police recovered a gas mask case. They found the initials GC etched into the interior of the leather. This piece of evidence proved to be the critical break in the case. The police contacted the Royal Air Force and provided the initials. They cross-referenced the mark with the personnel records of all airmen stationed at the nearby base. The records pointed to Gordon Cummins, an aircraftman who served at the St. John's Wood base. The investigators detained Cummins for questioning on February 17th. They conducted a search of his locker and personal quarters. They discovered a variety of stolen items, including fountain pens and jewelry, which belonged to the victims of the murders. The police matched the description of Cummins to the reports of the man seen in an RAF uniform near the crime scenes. He initially denied any involvement in the deaths. The investigators presented the evidence of the gas mask case and the stolen property. They brought in witnesses who identified Cummins as the man seen at the Soho Hotel. The forensic team conducted an analysis of the clothes Cummins wore on the night of the final murder. They found traces of blood that matched the blood type of Doris Juanit. This physical evidence placed Cummins directly at the scene of the crime. The police shifted from a general search for a serial killer to a focused interrogation of a single suspect. Cummins provided a false account of his activities during the blackout. The detectives dismantled his alibi by comparing his timeline with the duty roster at the airbase. They identified discrepancies in his statements regarding his leave hours. The investigators worked with military authorities to ensure Cummins remained in custody throughout the legal process. They gathered testimonies from the hotel managers who confirmed his presence in the Soho district. The arrest of Cummins brought a temporary sense of relief to the City of London. The press reported the capture as a victory for Scotland Yard during the difficult period of the Blitz. The investigators compiled a comprehensive report on the 4 murders. They solidified the connection between the stolen goods and the victims. The evidence indicated a motive that included both robbery and sexual sadism. Cummins maintained a cold and detached demeanor during the sessions. The detectives documented his reactions to the crime scene photographs. They identified a pattern of aggressive behavior in his past records, but he had no previous convictions for major violent crimes. The investigation moved toward the formal prosecution of the suspect in the British court system. The trial of Gordon Cummins began at the Central Criminal Court, known as the Old Bailey, in April 1942. The prosecution presented the evidence collected by Scotland Yard over the previous months. They detailed the specific method of strangulation and the anatomical precision of the mutilations. The forensic experts provided testimony regarding the bloodstains found on the clothing of the accused. The defense team argued that the evidence was circumstantial and failed to provide a definitive link to the murders. They questioned the reliability of the witnesses who identified Cummins in the uniform. However, the discovery of the stolen items belonging to the victims proved to be the most damaging testimony. The prosecution presented the gas mask case with the initials GC as a key piece of physical evidence. They invited the jury to consider the consistency of the killer's method across all 4 deaths. The judge reviewed the case and instructed the jury on the weight of the forensic evidence. The jury deliberated for a short period before they returned a unanimous verdict of guilty on all counts of murder. The judge sentenced Gordon Cummins to death by hanging. The verdict brought an end to the terror that gripped London during the Blitz. The proceedings established the facts of the murders and finalized the legal accountability for the victims. The investigators who worked on the case expressed their satisfaction with the outcome of the trial. They felt the process served the interest of justice for the families of the 4 women. The trial attracted significant attention during the wartime period. The public followed the updates in the newspapers daily. The conviction confirmed that even during the chaos of the air raids, the rule of law remained functional in the city. Cummins appealed the sentence, but the higher courts rejected his arguments. He remained in the prison system until the execution date. The state carried out the sentence in June 1942 at Wandsworth Prison. This marked the conclusion of the legal saga of the lipstick killer. The police finalized their files and closed the active investigation. They filed the evidence in the permanent archives of Scotland Yard. The case provided a clear understanding of the logistics required to track a predator in an urban environment under siege. The detectives maintained the records for future reference in criminal law courses. They focused on the successful use of forensic evidence to overcome the lack of witnesses. The case demonstrated the efficacy of interagency cooperation between the police and the military during wartime conditions. The trial served as a historical record of the events and the finality of the judicial process. The crimes of Gordon Cummins left an indelible mark on the history of London. The case of the lipstick killer remains one of the most studied serial murder investigations of the mid-20th century. Historians and true crime researchers continue to examine the impact of the war on the criminal activities in the city. The murders showed that the chaos of the Blitz provided unique opportunities for predatory behavior. We remember the names of Evelyn Hamilton, Evelyn Oatley, Margaret Lowe, and Doris Juanit. Their stories are preserved in the records of Scotland Yard. We documented the facts and the impact of these events for the future. The legacy of Dossier 40 is a lesson in the importance of maintaining order and investigation protocols, even during times of national crisis. We view the events of 1942 through the lens of historical reflection. The case is long closed, but it is not forgotten. The records remain available for any future inquiry. The investigation taught the world about the need for forensic precision in homicide cases. We honor the victims by documenting the history that arose from their deaths. The lipstick killer stands as a definitive point in the history of British criminal justice. The world shifted in the aftermath of 1942. We operate with a better understanding of serial criminal behavior because of the lessons learned during this investigation. The ghost of the killer still lingers in the stories told about the dark nights of the Blitz. We documented the full sequence of the tragedy. This concludes our review of the case. The archives are open, and the story continues to unfold as we look into the past. We remain satisfied that the investigation was as thorough as possible given the era. The mystery of the lipstick killer is one of the most enduring stories of our time. It serves as a study in how we define criminal legends. The truth remains in the records, waiting for those who study the facts. We leave the story here for the next generation of investigators. The search for knowledge regarding the killer continues in the archives of history. The lipstick killer stopped his work in 1942, but his presence in the cultural record is permanent. We have documented the facts and the impact of these dark events. The legacy of Dossier 40 will remain as a reminder of the fragility of the peace we often take for granted. This concludes our review of the case. The archives are open, and the story continues to unfold as we look into the past. We remain hopeful that the final piece of the puzzle will always be understood through the facts. The investigation is a journey that has reached its destination. We hold the memory of the four in the light of our research. The facts remain, and the record endures. Subscribe to Mind 74. If you reach the end, subscribe, leave a like, and hit the notification bell. Comment below your thoughts on this mystery, and share this video to help us grow the community.